They say certain afternoons sneak up on you, the kind that rewrite the quiet you've grown so fond of, turning solitude into something unexpectedly alive. I figured that Thursday would be mine alone, curled up with a worn novel in my favorite rocker, perhaps brewing a mug of chamomile if the mood struck. The world outside my window was all soft greens and lazy clouds, the sort of day that invites you to linger indoors without apology. But then, a shuffle of boots on the front steps, deliberate yet unsure, like someone testing the ground before committing. A rap at the door, firm but laced with hesitation. I rose, smoothing my apron, and swung it open to find him there, my grandson Elias, silhouetted against the porch light even in daylight. Elias, before I dive into what unfolded, let me wonder for a moment, where are you tuning in from this evening? I love picturing the faces behind these tales, the ones that feel too raw for fiction, yet bloom straight from the heart of what's true. It had been ages since Elias last crossed my threshold, half a year, maybe more. He's the thoughtful sort in our clan, the one who nods more than he speaks, who slips away from gatherings with a gracious word about errands waiting. Visits from him were rare, often prodded by his dad's gentle nudges, and even then he'd fade early, leaving a polite echo. But this time, everything about him whispered urgency. He huddled in a thick knit sweater, despite the balmy breeze, strands of his hair slicked by what might have been mist or worry. A tentative curve touched his lips. "Nana," he murmured, "mind if I step in unannounced?" I waved him through, the old pine floors groaning a welcome beneath his soles. Inside, the air wrapped around us like a familiar quilt, laced with the faint vanilla from a taper I'd kindled that morning. He lingered at the entry, eyes roaming the walls as if rediscovering a map he'd once known by heart. "Always room for you, love," I replied, though his gaze betrayed this was no idle detour. I guided him to the sitting area, where the table lamp spilled amber glows across the threadbare velvet cushions. He didn't settle immediately. Instead, he drifted to the sideboard, lined with framed memories frozen in silver edges. His fingers hovered over a snapshot of my departed husband. Victor, snapped decades back during our getaway to the Oregon coast, him grinning beside a weathered lighthouse, salt wind tousling his hair. "I've had him on my mind lately," Elias said, voice barely above a hush. That pulled me up short. Victor had slipped away almost 2 decades prior, when Elias was barely out of his teens. "What's stirring that up?" I ventured. He lifted one shoulder, eyes fixed on the image. The quiet strength he had, the way he looked at you like you were the anchor in any storm. I don't think I truly saw it back then. I eased into my rocker, studying him. There was a gravity in his tone, a questing pull, like roots seeking soil after too long in the dark. At last, he claimed the armchair opposite, leaning forward with hands clasped. The silence between us thickened, not awkward but charged, as if words were gathering force just beyond reach. "I've been wrestling with some shadows," he confessed finally. Wasn't sure where to turn. A swell of affection bloomed in me. Elias, who guarded his depths like a locked journal, picking my door to knock. It tugged at something ancient in my ribs, so I tilted nearer. "Then unburden here, dear. Whatever's tangled, we'll tease it loose together." He paused, thumb tracing his chin's faint stubble. It's like I'm teetering on a cliff, holding back from the leap, and I can't pinpoint the fear. His admission swelled to fill the space, vast and vulnerable. I recalled my own youth's hesitations, the fork in the road where I'd clung to safe paths, letting dreams gather dust. His stare met mine, hungry for wisdom, solace, perhaps merely the grace of being heard. "I've danced that edge myself," I whispered. "You're not adrift, Elias. You're at a threshold. And sometimes all it takes is a nudge to remind you the crossing is yours to claim." He held still. Then a genuine bloom softened his features. Not the courteous mask I knew, but a release like exhaling after a held breath. "Knew you'd get it," he breathed. We lingered there near an hour, the taper's flame dancing shadows as he unfurled. He spoke of his days at the firm, the grind of molding himself into a shape that chafed, the gnawing ache for authenticity amid the gloss. His words flowed steadier, unspooling a burden worn threadbare. Midway, I bridged the gap with my palm over his. His grip met mine, firm yet tender, a silent vow. I'm holding on. Simple, yet it wove us tighter, mending the frayed threads of years marked by courteous nods. As dusk crept in, draping the room in twilight veils, we resisted the lamp's summons. The gathering gloom seemed to loosen tongues, granting permission for truths long veiled. No clue where this path twists next, Elias admitted at length. But I crave more than drifting through the hours. I pressed his hand. Then seize it. Time bows to no one. I've learned that the hard way. When he rose to leave, a subtle lift graced his frame, steps surer on the threshold. I trailed him to the stoop, watching his silhouette merge with the street's glow, droplets from an earlier shower catching the light like fleeting stars. Shutting the door, I sensed a pivot, not thunderous but profound, etched into memory's quiet corners. Nightfall brought a drizzle, a rhythmic patter that lulls a home into introspection, coaxing secrets from the walls. I'd nestled beneath an Afghan with my book when the entry light flickered alive. A raccoon, I mused fleetingly, until the knock, measured, known. Peering out, there was Elias, cowl thrown back, rain weaving rivulets through his locks. Didn't mean to show up this late, he said. Was in the vicinity. Craved a haven that feels right. I parted the way wordlessly. He eased inside, scuffing boots on the frayed runner Victor and I haggled for at a coastal flea market years ago. The storm's crisp tang mingled with the hearth's lingering warmth, the lamp's radiance pooling like honey on the woven mat. His breaths came ragged, the cadence of one fraying at the seams. Tea? I offered. He dipped his head, sinking into the cushions as I tended the stove. There's solace in the tea right, swishing the infuser, portioning herbs, cradling mugs to chase away the chill, as if each motion barters haste for peace. Returning with fragrant brews, I found him shed of his damp layers, gaze lost in the antique timepiece ticking in the alcove. It was my grandfather's heirloom, prone to lagging unless you whispered encouragements while setting it. That's the yarn I spun for Victor. Anyway, you know, Elias murmured, transfixed by the pendulum's sway. Time's been haunting me, how it warps under the load you're hauling. I placed the tray on the ottoman dividing us. What's weighing on you this eve? Silence stretched. He nursed his mug, vapors misting his lenses. Lifting his eyes, barriers crumbled, perhaps eroded by the day's relentless pour. Dread, he voiced softly, and sorrow for paths not taken, these roles I feign contentment in. I held steady. 7 decades teach you, souls vault higher from a bed of stillness. Work imploded today, he continued. Boss framed it as a slip-up. I saw it as gasping for air in a cage too tight. I bolted, not resigned, just out. Streets blurred, and instinct led me here. He sipped, tension ebbing from his frame like receding tide. Rain feathered the panes in gossamer streaks. Grieve the rough patch, I said, but cherish that your steps recalled this roof. A faint grin tugged him. Then, I've lost sight of who I meant to be. Nana. That meant to hung heavy. I'd watched it cloak him since boyhood. The dutiful kin, the unflappable sibling, the fixer who fades into backdrop. A perilous pattern. The world accommodates your vanishing if you rehearse it well. Care to see a keepsake? I proposed. He assented and I rose, joints murmuring protest, leading him along the corridor to Victor's former den at the rear. A nook redolent of his essence. Linseed traces, planned timber, pencil dust, that earthy whisper of fresh shavings, post-loss. I'd sealed it away, grief's sentinel. Then dawn broke one day. I swept the workbench, acquainted myself with his implements, unwilling to let his craft die unnamed in my grasp, though his touch would grace them no more. The space endured unchanged. Gouges aligned, a mallet with a scarred grip, tins of fasteners scripted in Victor's precise, unyielding hand. Atop the upper ledge rested a modest cedar case, untouched by queries. I retrieved it, placing it amid the tools. Crafted this in the wake of his going, I explained. Weeks to hone the edges satin smooth. My sole endeavor, vowed more, but one truth-told piece suffices perhaps. The clasp side open, revealing bundled recipe cards, cream-tinted with age, lashed by cord. Elias's brow arched in query. Memos, I clarified, from Victor to tomorrow's we'd yet to greet. He'd slip one into the flour tin after spats, or nestle it in my scarf when weariness shadowed me. In his absence, I'd unearthed fresh stock and inscribed my own, not precisely to him, but to mornings that defied logic. Fancy a glimpse? He nodded, plucking the uppermost. His scan halted. A slow vent escaped him, akin to shedding an invisible pack. What's inscribed? I inquired. He extended it. Uncertainty is no sin. Pause freely, proceed freely. We poised there, the slip a modest beacon amid the dim. The downpour swelled, a resonant tattoo. Elias claimed another, perusing in silence, then secreted both in his breast pocket. Beneath the turmoil, he ventured, timbre dropping. There's this. I yearn to dismantle the existence I've stacked, terrified of the judgments it'll summon. I braced against the bench, timber's patina imprinting my side. I could have dispensed counsel, tales, polished proverbs. But from my fiercest winters, it's not utterances that endure. It's presences that linger. What if we hold off on names for now? I suggested. What if we sketch a modest blueprint, one that won't rattle your core? A chuckle bubbled near his lips. A modest blueprint? I commence with slumber. Follow with fare that snaps satisfyingly. Thereafter jot 3 discards and 3 desires. Dawn brings 1 stride aligned with it. Minute. No fanfare, merely motion. He pondered, the den's chronometer pulsing its patient pulse from afar. Then, haven't truly rested in a fortnight. Commence there, then. I prepped the spare chamber with the hefty coverlet my aunt pieced from faded linens. Elias framed the portal, fists buried in pockets, surveying as if the space might appraise him. Ever chide yourself for yielding to ease? He queried. Constantly, I admitted. Hence, I train myself to forego amends to the bolster. His features unknotted in a grin. Reclining, he offered no farewell, merely gazed aloft as if beseeching clearance. I doused the glow and left the panel ajar, echoing the vigils for my little ones amid tempests long past. In the parlor, I communed with my tepid infusion and scripted our ledger on pristine stock. 3 relinquishments. A claim for labors that drain the spirit. Feigning ease in a vice of strain. Haunting kin as the spectral mainstay. 3 pursuits, shaping matter with palms. 1 dialogue weekly that spans like a reliable span, claiming mornings unmarred by foreboding. I leaned the note against the timepiece's base, sentinel for sunrise. Past the witching hour, footfalls whispered me awake. Elias loomed in the arch, tresses tousled, bearing that restless cast of thoughts that gnaw unrelenting. Sleepless? Echoes of the boss's critique, he sighed, mingled with Dad's and my own self-scorn. He kneaded his nape. Don't want to cast blame unfairly, Nana. They all root for my ascent. True enough. Affection and demands often don matching garb. Here, I beckoned, patting the settee. Join me in breath's cadence. We aligned, spines to the weave. I recounted the right a caregiver shared during Victor's waning, when my pulse fluttered wild. Inhale, deliberate to 4 counts. Retain 4, exhale 7. Together, we wove the pattern. In the muted haze, harmony drew us toward tranquility's shore. Cycles passed. His ribs softened. Palms chafed, a touch abashed. Odd, isn't it? He mused. 38 and gleaning breath from my Nana. Fortunate, rather, I quipped. I'm a savant at it. His laugh rippled low. His glance strayed to the sideboard, Victor's likeness presiding with that knowing quirk men wear post-mend. Elias's mien shifted, a spring zephyr parting clouds. I ache for him, he voiced. Never grasped his depths as you did. Yet this night I conjure his counsel. He'd declare, I relayed. No trophy for breath withheld over long. He'd add, mind my heart's keeper, encompassing me and you, for in our line, endearments expand like roots. We lingered till the clock coaxed a retry at repose. This round, Elias yawned, chagrined, retreating hallward. At the lintel, he halted. Nana, if I ring Mum tomorrow voicing a need for breathing room, will it wound you? I'll beam with pride at your unfiltered truth, I assured, and await you post-call. He inclined his head, melting into hush. Dawn tiptoed past 6. Storm's murmur yielding to that profound calm where tempests truce with light. Kitchenward, I paired pears and slathered toast, blade's cadence sinking my musings. Elias ambled in, cowlick defiant, visage blending youth's bloom with age's etch. I slid a repast his way. He partook with the relish of one absolved. Unearthed this, he noted anon, fishing the uncertainty slip from his fold. It stood sentinel through the dark. I've penned another charter, I disclosed, proffering the timepieces ward. He scanned, rescanned as if charting constellations in ink. That final clause, he tapped, claiming mornings unmarred by foreboding. I can't envision its shape. We'll pilfer one, I proposed. Claim mine interim. It dawns with unsealing the den and selecting a trifling mend. His brows arched. Amend? A cabinet latch that sassed me seasons through. We flanked Victor's slab, me demonstrating wax rub for glide, probing for warps. Urging yield to the flaw's whisper over brute command, a creed for myriad fixes. He eased a bolt, abraded a feather's breath from the edge. The panel whispered obedience, dignified in function. Behold, I pronounced. Cosmos marginally mended. He eyed his digits, startled by their reclaimed kinship. Forgot this thrill. Which? Coaxing a chord sans conquest. He tarried through forenoon. From the veranda, he dialed his mum. Not clash, but a loving demarcation. Re-entering relief and ache intertwined, as if existence had inclined nearer, not aloof. We ambled the block leisurely. The district gleamed sodden umber and verdant, a lad on wheels scattering remnant pools, saluting us like comrades of yore. Resettled, Elias craved a Victor anecdote veiled from all. Thus I unveiled our inaugural autumn-wedded, furnace faltering mid-blizzard, Victor improvising a duct from a relic blower and radiant coil to channel heat hall long. We supped broth cross-legged by the chamber's portal, sole nook breath visible free. He cut a comical figure, I chuckled, yet intoned, we've warmth aplenty, as sacrament. Elias's mirth rang unbridled, rare vintage, then hushed. Nana, he broached at length, what if I shun that post altogether? Then shun, I affirmed. What of letting kin down? You'll sting some, I owned, and they'll mend. Your tenure's no collective endeavor. He probed my countenance. Whence such candor? From enduring, I replied, and cherishing those who chafed at my endurance's form. He spanned the board, not clasping but claiming the charter's flip. Scribbling thereon, he proffered, gather come Tuesdays. Forge a trifle. Converse as if stakes sore. Tuesday's suit, he vowed. Even bridging back to duty a while, Tuesdays endure. Then Tuesdays, I echoed. Will timber souls beyond mere grain? Color warmed his cheeks. Words grazing too intimate, yet he nodded. Grave and true. We scoured the board as duo honed, suds and clatter a duet. Ere parting at the portal anew, yesterday's stance, he drew me into an embrace unhurried, profound, anchoring, thankful, voicing the unsaid in pressure. Gratitude, he breathed to my crown. For absolving my chaos, he said. Just for steeping calm and chronology. I observed his departure, gate unbowed. Heavens laundered pristine. Neighbor's oak cradled leaf prisms scattering light's bounty. I savored the abode's repose, then to the den, caressing the remedied latch's hush. A steadfast hum, amid tools, sprawled the cedar trove. I slipped a fresh leaf to the sheaf in the steadfast hand of market tallies, ascent forms, dispatches to horizons unforeseen, altar sans erasure, repose sans lapse. Affection is the haven we erect for returns. Nestling it below kin, I latched the hasp. In the hush ensuing, the dwelling sighed, and I grasped the marvel's core. Not Elias's summons, nor his plea for harbor. Simpler, we unveiled selves. And thence mundane dawns transmute eternal. But oh, how those Tuesdays wove their spell, threading our lives like a seamstress mending heirlooms. The first arrived crisp, autumn's breath nipping at the panes, leaves carpeting the path in copper confetti. Elias knocked with that newfound rhythm, confident, not creeping, and I met him with cider steaming, spiced with clove and a dash of mischief. Brought reinforcements, he announced, hefting a canvas tote brimming with oddments, salvaged brass hinges, a coil of twine, a dog-eared manual on joinery he'd unearthed at a thrift haunt. His eyes sparkled, that boyish glint I'd glimpsed in snapshots from his youth, before the world's weights rounded his edges. We migrated to the den, where sunlight slanted through dust motes like golden arrows, illuminating Victor's ghosts in every nick and plane. What's our quarry today? I queried, rolling sleeves over elbows that protested less each time. He pondered, scanning the shelves as if consulting old allies. That wobbly shelf in the pantry? It's been mocking my tins for months. Shall we tame it? We set to, measuring twice as Victor preached, his spirit in the chalk lines we snapped across pine. Elias's hands, once confined to keyboards and contracts, rediscovered their poetry, sawing clean, clamping firm, sanding to a whisper. Midway he paused, chisel midair. Nana, it's not just wood. It's like exhaling what I've bottled. I nodded, passing him a plane smoothed by generations. Victor's creed, every joint's a promise kept. Yours today? As we affixed the brace, stories spilled unbidden. His of a boyhood fort cobbled from orchard scraps, mine of Victor's first botched birdhouse, a lopsided affair that housed more squirrels than avians. Laughter echoed off the rafters, chasing shadows to the corners. By noon, the shelf stood sentinel, unyielding, laden with jars that no longer danced a jig. We toasted with cider mugs, clinking like conspirators. "To Tuesdays," he said, and I echoed, feeling the rhythm of us take root.